Senator, and to be as efficient as possible, the committee meets today for a short business meeting, followed by immediately after that by a hearing on 4 nominations, 2 for senior positions within Interior and 2 for senior positions within the Department of Energy. We'll begin with a short business meeting to consider 3 agenda items in the order in which each item was listed on the agenda that the committee's clerk sent each of you and your offices on this past Friday, April 25th. First, we'll be voting on the nomination of Mr. Wells Griffith to be Undersecretary of Energy. Then we will vote on the nomination of Dr. Dario Gil to be Undersecretary of Energy for Science. Each of these nominees is well qualified and has my support. Finally, we will finish our work on S714, the Critical Mineral Consistency Act, before the vote on this bipartisan legislation, of which I'm pleased to be the prime sponsor. I'll ask the committee to take up a joint Lee-Heinrich substituted amendment that's been circulated to senators and an accompanying title amendment. The Lee-Heinrich substitute amendment builds on the text that I circulated before the last markup. As soon as we have a reporting requirement, I'm going to ask the committee to vote on the nominations, the amendments, and finally the bill. After we hear briefly from Senator Heinrich in a moment, we'll make a judgment call. We've got some members who are running a little bit late because of protest traffic. If we don't yet have a quorum by then, we will reverse the order that I described slightly by going to the legislation first and then turning to the nominations. And then after the votes, I'll recognize any member who wishes to speak briefly on any of the matters on which we voted. I'll ask members to keep their remarks as brief as they can so that we can proceed promptly to the hearing thereafter. And after members have spoken, we'll move directly into the hearing. I'll then offer my formal opening statement on the hearing, and at that point call on Senator Heinrich for his opening statement, and then we'll swear in the witnesses and introduce them. Senator Heinrich.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I am concerned about the chaos that this administration is facilitating at DOE. The workforce reductions, the funding freezes, and the reported hit list of programs targeted for termination. And I fear that the nominees before us will be called upon as loyal members of this administration to make policy decisions with which I will strongly disagree and which will not be in the best interests of the department or the nation. However, these noms are both qualified by their experience and their training to serve in these positions. So on balance, I would rather have them on the job where I hope that they can bring some stability to bear and where hopefully they will be willing and able to defend the department's programs and make better decisions than those currently being made by Elon Musk and Doge. Consequently, I will vote in favor of these nominations, but I do so with substantial reservations, and I intend to hold both appointees accountable for their actions. This administration has shown a willingness to color outside the lines, and I think we need to do everything we can to mitigate that. I'm going to quickly ask unanimous consent to enter an article into the record today. The headline of this article is, "A Mass Exodus Begins at the Energy Department. Huge staff departures are expected from offices that spearhead advanced nuclear, grid innovation, and domestic manufacturing." Headlines like these should concern all of us.
Without objection.
On the critical minerals bill, I want to thank Chairman Lee for being willing to address my concerns with his original bill, and I support his substitute amendment and will vote for the bill as amended.
Thank you very much. We'll now proceed with the business meeting. I've been informed that there is a request in for a roll call vote on each of the nominations, so we'll turn first to the nomination of Mr. Wells Griffith to be Undersecretary of Energy. The clerk will call the roll. Aye.
Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Risch. Aye. Mr. Daines. Aye. Mr. Cotton. Aye. Mr. McCormick. Aye. Mr. Justice.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Cassidy.
Aye.
Ms. Hyde-Smith.
Aye by proxy.
Ms. Murkowski.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden.
No by proxy.
Ms. Cantwell.
No.
Ms. Sorono.
No by proxy.
Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto.
No.
Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla. Mr. Gallego.
No.
On this vote, the ayes are 14 and the nays are 6. However, we do not have senators present.
All right, let's proceed to the nomination of Dario Gill. No, never mind. We're going to go to the bill first. Let's go turn to S714, and we'll get back to the noms in a moment. Turning to the pending legislation, we'll consider the Lee Heinrich amendment that was circulated yesterday in the form of a substitute. We've sent it around to the offices and all members. And again, on this one, I want to thank Senator Heinrich and his staff for working with us. The government's listing of critical minerals should be harmonized. Inadvertently, the lists maintained respectively by the Department of the Interior and the Department of Energy since the enactment of the Energy Act of 2020 have been far too often a source of confusion and have produced unintended consequences because of the fact that they're not consistent. This bill is intended to solve the problem. The substitute amendment does so in a better way than the text of the underlying bill. The substitute amendment provides clearer and more specific language. It achieves the policy objectives that we share with companion legislation that passed the House with significant bipartisan support in Congress, and we'll also take up the necessary title amendment. Senator Heinrich, do you want to speak to this? So if any other senator who may wish to speak on the amendment or on the bill, I'd ask them to hold their remarks until after the votes. And so we'll move now to the vote on the amendments. Our first vote will be on the substitute amendment. All those in favor of the substitute amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The amendment is adopted. Our second vote will be on the title amendment. All those in favor of the title amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. And the amendment is adopted. We'll now turn to the bill as amended, S714, the Critical Mineral Consistency Act. Do you want to speak to the bill before we vote on that? Okay.
I just want to thank the chairman for working with us to come up with a bipartisan approach to this. I think that to the extent we can do that, it will make for more durable policy, and I appreciate his efforts.
Terrific. Thank you very much. Turning to passage of the bill itself, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the measure will be submitted to the Senate floor. Yeah. All right. I'm told that we have colleagues in the building traveling to the committee hearing room by way of Neptune, apparently, but they are here. Today is the final day of argument before the Supreme Court. There were large demonstrations out there, and I think there were a couple of other protest areas throughout the city, and I think that's what's caused some of the problems. So we will patiently await them. Senator Risch has offered to do a song and dance routine, but...
Mr. Chairman, what I would suggest we do is start the hearing and just break to continue the vote. That's what we do in foreign relations.
Yeah.
You don't have to adjourn or anything. Start that hearing, move from there.
I've got the nodding approval of my staff director for that. Yeah. Yeah, they both got those. One approach we could take here, we can either turn to the hearing portion of it. We could also just, if anybody wants to speak to the nominees or to the bill, they could do that now. We have any idea where they are in the building?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Chairman, I mean, at a minimum, maybe we could speak to the nominees, do some introductions there. For example, I'd like to introduce Dr. Travnik, particularly for folks that have other
Yeah, why don't we do that?
committee hearings coming up. I think we should do some of that.
Why don't you provide your introduction now? That'd be great.
Sure, I'd be happy to. I'm going to be, or am introducing this morning, Dr. Andrea Travnik, and she has been nominated to be Assistant Secretary of Interior for Water and Science. And she's just got a stellar background for that position, and so I'm very pleased to provide her introduction, not only because she's a fellow North Dakotan, but because of her tremendous background and skill set for this position. She has some family with her today, her father, Pat, and I actually thought that it was, she had two sisters, Jean and Heather, but I guess Jean is actually her mother. And I was confused when I saw them. I thought there were three sisters. But I guess it's really great to have you guys here. And of course, I'm kidding just a little bit. Her father, Pat, has over 40 years, I think, with the United States Air Force, both as a pilot, in uniform, and also then in civilian work as well. And I had the great good fortune when I was governor of North Dakota to fly with him, and he flew B-52s. And we did a practice run over the state capitol in Bismarck at about 50,000 feet, which was a lot of fun. And I think the only reason we got clearance to do it is maybe because I was governor at that time. I'm not sure. Unless you guys were doing that all the time, you just didn't bother to tell us, because at 50,000 feet, we were way up there. But anyway, a great record of service. And actually, when I was governor, I hired Andrea to come to work for us. She graduated from our outstanding land-grant university, North Dakota State University, which, of course, everybody knows is the home of the bison. I don't have to tell anybody here that, certainly on the Republican side, because they hear me talk about it quite a bit. She was a stellar student, but she was also a stellar athlete. She was a tremendous soccer player, and so just an all-star performer all around. I hired her in the governor's office. After that, she worked for Governor Dalrymple, who succeeded me, and then another guy you might have heard of, and that is Governor Burgum, who now is the Secretary of Interior, so it's no surprise that he wanted to bring Andrea here with him. And she actually, in this position, she was formerly, during the first Trump administration, she was the acting Assistant Secretary for Water and Science, so she's got some great background for this job. And so I strongly recommend that people support her for this position. She's the kind of person that understands these jobs are about getting things done. And Senator King, that means working with everybody, even independents, not just Republicans and Democrats, but independents too, to get things done. And I highly recommend her and ask for your support for her. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Senator Hoeven, and I know Senator Risch is grateful also not to have had to do his song and dance routine.
I wonder if Senator Hoeven would respond to an inquiry.
Of course.
She's smart enough to figure there's no Z in bison.
Let's just say she's off the chart smart, okay?
But Senator Hoeven, you know what the mother buffalo said to her son as he went off to school.
Bison,
Bye, son.
yeah.
Not bison.
Bison,
Yeah, that one
as
definitely
opposed to the North Dakota State, as Jim Risch will tell you, Senator Risch, bison.
All right.
Matter of fact, President Trump asked that Final important note, we brought the bison to the White House not too long ago, and President, just to show you're in good company, Senator Rich, President Trump asked the same question. He said, wait a minute, it's an S. Why are you saying Z? And I said, well, because it's the bison. Thanks, guys.
It's spelled with an S. I don't know how. Okay. Let's turn to the nomination of Mr. Wells Griffith to be Undersecretary of Energy. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lee,
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Risch.
Aye.
Mr. Daines. Mr. Cotton. Mr. McCormick. Mr. Justice.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Hyde-Smith. Ms. Murkowski.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich. Mr. Wyden.
No by proxy.
Ms. Cantwell.
No by proxy.
Ms. Hirono.
No by proxy.
Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla.
No by proxy.
And Mr. Gallego.
You voted yes. We're about to start.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that I be recorded by, as
Yeah,
a yes.
Yes, oh,
Without objection.
Senator Barrasso. Would you like to be recorded on this vote?
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. Right. Okay, then. So on this vote, the ayes are 14 and the nays are 6, and the nomination is reported favorably.
Great. Nomination is agreed to and will be reported favorably to the Senate. Turning now to the nomination of Dr. Dario Gil to be Undersecretary of Energy for Science. The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Lee.
Aye.
Mr. Barrasso. Mr. Risch.
Aye.
Mr. Daines. Mr. Cotton. Mr. McCormick.
Yeah.
Mr. Justice.
Aye by proxy.
Yeah.
Mr. Cassidy.
Aye by proxy.
Ms. Hyde-Smith. Ms. Murkowski.
Aye by proxy.
Mr. Hoven. Mr. Heinrich.
Aye.
Mr. Wyden.
No by proxy.
Ms. Cantwell.
No by proxy.
Ms. Hirono.
No by proxy.
Mr. King. Ms. Cortez Masto. Mr. Hickenlooper. Mr. Padilla.
No by proxy.
Mr. Gallego.
When do you need me to come down? Right now? Okay. I'll kick it off as soon as he announces this, and I'll explain what's happening, and then I'll be right down there.
On this, pardon me, on this vote, the ayes are 15 and the nays are 5.
Excellent. The nomination will be reported favorably to the Senate floor. Okay.
Thank you.
Now we're going to turn directly into our hearing, our fifth nomination hearing for the 119th Congress. We're going to receive testimony from 4 well-qualified Americans nominated by the President for senior offices within our committee's jurisdiction, 2 at the Department of the Interior and 2 at the Department of Energy. I'm going to recognize Senator Murkowski to introduce Mr. Abbey. She's apparently not here yet, so we will hold off on that for a moment. Senator Hoven has also already recognized Dr. Travnik.
I can do it again if you'd like.
And yes,
Do you want to hear, I mean, I've got a lot more to say about her if you want. Martin would probably like to hear a lot more, right? Do another introduction if you want.
that would also be fine. Now, in a moment, Senator Risch, who graciously supplied us with the vote necessary to have a quorum, has asked that I provide him a quorum in a competing markup about to start the Foreign Relations Committee. So here in just a moment, I'll have Senator, where'd she go? Oh, yeah, why don't you do it? We're gonna have Senator Hoeven preside in my absence. So why don't you get these guys started? I'll be back in a few minutes. And
That's fine.
and then we can give you some notes. If Senator Murkowski's not here for the introduction, you can introduce the other witness, swear them in, and then let them begin the opening statements. I'll be back soon. Thank you.
I want to welcome all of our witnesses here today. The rules of the committee require that all nominees be sworn in connection with their testimony. So if you would, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give the Senate Committee on Energy and Natural Resources shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Let the record show that they all responded in the affirmative. Thank you. Before you begin your opening statements, I'll also ask the witnesses 3 questions that are posed to nominees appearing before the committee. First, this will be for all of you. Your response will be, I do, if in fact you do. First, will you be able to appear before this committee and other congressional committees to represent department positions and respond to issues of concern to the Congress? Second, are you aware of any personal holdings, investments, or interests that could constitute a conflict of interest or create the appearance of such conflicts should you be confirmed and assume the office to which you have been nominated by the President? Okay. And third, are you involved or do you have any assets in a blind trust? Okay, thank you. All right, I've already introduced Dr. Travnik. I guess we'll just, for right now, we'll hold and see if Senator Murkowski gets here in time to introduce Tristan Abbey. But we'll just hold on that introduction for a minute.
Senator Hoeven?
Yes.
Why don't I give my opening statement? That'll save you a filibuster.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven. Welcome, Ms. Beyer, Dr. Travnik, Mr. Garish, and Mr. Abbey. This is our 4th nominations hearing this year, and although the breadth of responsibilities of the offices that we are considering is narrowing as we move on, their importance is not diminished. We meet this morning to consider 3 assistant secretaries and the administrator of the Energy Information Administration. Each of these offices we are considering carries with it enormous responsibilities of the utmost importance to the members of this committee and to the American people. Ms. Beyer has been nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Land and Minerals Management. If confirmed, she will oversee 4 of the principal offices of the Department of Interior: the Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, and the Office of Surface Mining. All told, she will oversee more than 244 million acres of land that belongs to the public. 700 million acres of onshore mineral estate, 3.2 billion acres of the outer continental shelf, 30 national monuments, 25 national conservation areas. It will be her job to both preserve and protect our public lands and to provide for the development of their natural resources in a safe and environmentally responsible way. Dr. Travnik has been nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Water and Science. If confirmed, she will oversee two of the oldest bureaus in the department, the Geological Survey and the Bureau of Reclamation. The Geological Survey is one of our nation's oldest and most respected scientific institutions, and it is our principal source of knowledge about our lands and waters, our mineral wealth, and the natural hazards we face. The Bureau of Reclamation oversees the water supplies upon which millions of Americans in 17 western states depend. It manages nearly 500 dams and nearly 300 reservoirs. It is the second largest producer of hydroelectricity, and it irrigates 10 million acres of land to grow crops on which we all depend. Mr. Garish has been nominated to be the Assistant Secretary of Energy for Nuclear Energy. Nuclear power generates about 20% of the nation's current electricity. It does so cleanly and reliably. We cannot do without it. We depend on it to meet our energy needs and our climate goals. But the current generation of nuclear power plants, built many decades ago, will not last forever. At some point, they will need to be replaced by newer, safer, and more affordable reactor technologies, which will only come about through the sustained research and development efforts of the Office of Nuclear Energy. Finally, Mr. Abbey has been nominated to be the administrator of the Energy Information Administration, which collects and analyzes the information about energy resources, production, and demand upon which the Department, Congress, private industry, and the public depend. Senator Moynihan famously remarked that everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not his own facts. Each senator is entitled to their own opinion about energy policy, but we must share a common set of nonpartisan facts. It has long been the Energy Information Administrator's task to provide those facts, and it is absolutely essential that the administrator stick to the facts and not color them with partisan opinion. But as qualified as each of these nominees may be, no single person can perform all of the important tasks with which they will be entrusted by themselves. They are not expected to. Instead, they are expected to inspire, to manage, to lead organizations staffed with dedicated and experienced professionals who have devoted their careers to public service. The career civil service in both of these departments and across the entire government has been under relentless attack by the current administration. So the fundamental question I have for each of the nominees this morning is whether, if you are confirmed to these positions of public trust, you will support and defend rather than demolish the offices and programs entrusted to your care, and if you will faithfully execute the authorities delegated to you by Congress and follow the laws as interpreted by the courts. Which brings me to something that you said, Mr. Garish, 42 years ago at your first confirmation hearing before this committee. I had to check on that the first time I read that line. You gave the committee your unqualified assurance that you would faithfully execute the public trust in a manner that would, quote, properly reflect the legislative intentions of the Congress without regard to the political views or personal preferences of the Secretary or the administration, and that you would discharge your duties, quote, on the basis of your best professional judgment as to what the law is, not what you or the Secretary or others might like it to be. You assured the committee that you were committed to that approach both intellectually and philosophically. And I hope that is still the case, Mr. Garish, and I hope that all four of our nominees can make that same commitment and give us that assurance this morning. Thank you, Senator Hoagland.
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. I've already introduced Dr. Travnik. I'm going to give brief introductions for the other three. These were prepared by the chairman of the committee. Ms. Leslie Byer, nominated Assistant Secretary for Lands and Mineral Management, will manage roughly 245 million acres of federal service lands, 1.7 billion acres on the Outer Continental Shelf. She'll oversee BLM, Bureau of Land Management, Bureau of Ocean, Energy Management, and the Office of Surface Mining, agencies that shape how we access and develop hundreds of millions of acres of public land and offshore resources. Ms. Beyer is a defender of American energy, recognizing that oil and gas have been fundamental to driving our economy and lifting billions of people worldwide out of poverty. She understands that America's strength is tied directly to our ability to produce reliable, affordable, and cleaner energy, especially from our abundant resources here at home. This is exactly the kind of leader we need to unlock American energy potential, cut through unneeded red tape, and drive prosperity. Mr. Ted Garish, nominated as Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy, will lead America's nuclear energy initiatives. Mr. Garish is uniquely prepared for this role, having served in senior nuclear positions dating back to the Reagan administration. Great. He has championed nuclear energy as clean, safe, reliable, and affordable solution already powering 1/5 of America. He acknowledges that nuclear power will be central to our future and that this technology will ensure American energy stability for decades to come. And finally, Mr. Tristan Abbey, nominated as Administrator for the Energy Information Administration, will oversee the independent agency responsible for producing energy data that guides policymakers, industry, and consumers. With Mr. Abbey at the helm, we'll have accurate, objective, and actionable energy data crucial to unleashing America's energy strength and reclaiming our global leadership. Each nominee here today is more than qualified. They represent exactly the type of bold leadership America needs now. American energy has always been a cornerstone of American strength. When we produce energy here at home, we power our economy. We lift entire communities out of poverty, and we undercut our adversaries. Energy dominance means good jobs, strong families, and a safer country. When we unleash American production, it's the folks on the rigs, in the trucks, and in the plants who win. The path forward isn't more rules from D.C., it's more trust in the men and women who know how to get the job done. We need pipelines, plants, permits, and a purpose. President Trump's first 100 days back in office have made one thing clear: the America of energy decline is over. With that, now we will proceed to the opening statements for each of the presenters, witnesses here today, nominees. And if you would proceed, Dr. Travnik.
Great. Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, and the members of the committee. I am both humbled and honored to be nominated by President Trump to serve the American people as Assistant Secretary for Water and Science at the Department of the Interior. Furthermore, I am grateful for the support and trust of Secretary Burgum, and thank you, Senator Hoeven, for that kind introduction today. I would like to begin by recognizing and thanking my parents, Pat and Jean, and my sister Heather, who traveled from North Dakota to be here today, while my grandma Norma and my nephews Ethan and Logan and other family are cheering me on back home. I'd also like to thank my friends, colleagues, teammates, and the Bison, with a Z, family, some of whom are here today for their continued guidance and support. I grew up in a military family, moving about every 3 years through high school, with roots grounded in northern Minnesota and North Dakota. My roots are further tied to an interior site, actually, Tamarack National Wildlife Refuge, located in Minnesota, where my parents met. Who knew we would all end up here today when Mom asked Dad to go for a walk along the lake? Our parents also raised us. Both my parents set the example early on of the importance of serving others. Through my dad's 44-year military career service to the country that you heard about already, 28 of those active duty, and through my mom's service temperament in her business, work as a travel agent, and as a military spouse. Core values of dedication, integrity, and respect for others were ingrained at a young age. Our parents also raised us to have great respect for the natural world. We visited national parks and national wildlife refuges across the country between moves and spent summers back at the lake and farm in Minnesota. These treasured experiences, hunting, fishing, camping, and spending countless hours outdoors on the water set a foundation for my passion for natural resources. Spending time in the field or kayaking are still my favorite places to be. I'm a proud graduate of North Dakota State University 3 times over. My master's research was located in the Badlands of Theodore Roosevelt National Park, where I conducted a land management study to reduce invasive species in the park. My PhD research focused on stakeholder perspectives and network relationships as they related to lake management decisions in Minnesota. For over 20 years, my professional career has been connected to the management of natural resources in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors through research, grassroots efforts, and working directly with landowners, project sponsors, and industries. I've been been able to quickly provide assessments, identify opportunities, and provide solutions to meet management objectives across competing frameworks. My work with the Army Corps and the Sacramento District provided a backdrop to an understanding of the complexities associated with the management of water in California. Participating firsthand in federal and state regulatory processes revealed inefficiencies in the bureaucratic system and set my public service mission to achieve management decisions through accountable, timely responses, process improvements, and collaborative and common sense approaches. In 2011, record flooding took place across the state of North Dakota, impacting major communities along several rivers. As a senior policy advisor to the governor, I worked with various international, federal, state, local agencies, and tribal nations to quickly identify changing conditions and determine needs. During this time, my parents' house was flooded waist-high, and my sister's house was flooded to the rooftop. This experience impressed upon me, both professionally and personally, the importance of real-time data, timely collaborative operations, and long-term management solutions, not only within a specific community or state, but within a shared watershed. While serving in various leadership roles at the Department of the Interior during the first Trump administration, I was fortunate to work on several administration priorities, including those related to water and science initiatives. At the state level, I led the Department of Parks and Recreation, and during my tenure as the first director of the Department of Water Resources, federally recognized tribal nations were added as partners for North Dakota cost share for water projects. Over $1.5 billion of state commitments were provided to cost share partners to build both water supply and flood protection projects. And access to affordable and reliable water supply through 2 state-owned regional projects was expanded. As we look across the West today, maintaining critical water infrastructure and managing water resources is crucial. Thoughtful collaborative approaches will be important to meet management objectives for water users, and further identifying and mapping our nation's own mineral assets and energy assets through the U.S. Geological Survey's capabilities will assist in fulfilling President Trump's priorities related to increasing mineral production and unleashing American energy. If confirmed as the Assistant Secretary for Water and Science, I'll bring my core values and natural resources and management experiences to the role. I look forward to leading and working again with the dedicated teams of engineers, hydrologists, and scientists at the Bureau of Reclamation and the U.S. Geological Survey to implement the Bureau's core missions. I commit to working in cooperation with you and with the American people as decisions are made, and to implement the President and the Secretary's priorities to increase accountability and responsiveness, implement innovation over regulation, and manage America's resources for American prosperity and national security. Thank you for meeting with me earlier this week and for having me here today. I look forward to answering any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Travnik. And now, Ms. Byer, your opening comments, please.
I'll turn it on. Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, and members of the committee, it's an honor to appear before you today as President Trump's nominee for Assistant Secretary for Land and Minerals Management at the Department of the Interior. I'm deeply grateful to President Trump and to Secretary Burgum for their confidence in my ability to ensure responsible stewardship of America's public lands for the benefit of all Americans. I'm also very thankful to have my friends and family here today, my parents Stan and Connie, my children Grant and Olivia, my oldest son Ethan watching us from Oklahoma State, where he should be studying for finals, and my godparents Charlie and Kathy. From the time that my grandfather, Leslie, began his career as a roughneck, and my great-aunt Faye was one of the first and only female tool pushers in the oil field, we've seen extraordinary feats of innovation in energy development that took our country from being a net energy importer to the world's largest energy exporter, all while leading the world in reducing emissions. Growing up on our family farm in West Texas, I've been surrounded by the energy workforce my entire life. And I've witnessed firsthand how America has proven time and time again that we can develop our resources cleaner, safer, and more efficiently than anyone else in the world. The advanced drilling equipment, the e-frac systems, and the underwater remote vehicles that I'm involved with today are vastly different than the tools of my grandparents' time, but the commitment to responsible production and the respect of our natural resources remains with me. From spending my birthday weekend each year in Alaska, hiking glaciers and running the Anchorage Half Marathon, to our annual family dove hunting season opener, and now managing my own farm, my family taught me to love and appreciate our lands, public and private. The Assistant Secretary for Land and Minerals Management plays a critical role in balancing multiple uses of our public lands, recognizing the lands as a vital asset of the American people and an important contributor to our nation's financial health and security. If confirmed to serve as Assistant Secretary, I pledge to be a responsible steward of more than 245 million acres of surface, 700 million acres of subsurface, and over 3 billion acres offshore, ensuring that critical energy development takes place alongside other important uses of recreation, conservation, grazing, timber management, and housing. I appreciate and understand the significant responsibilities of the role with its management of the 4 bureaus, the BLM, BOEM, BESI, and OSMRE. And if confirmed, I commit to working collaboratively with the members of this committee regarding the decisions related to the department's stewardship of federal lands and waters, including the management and development of their mineral and non-mineral resources. As a former CEO of an organization representing over 650,000 U.S. energy workers, and now as a corporate director, I have responsibility for executive oversight, governance, and the health and safety of a combined global workforce of over 10,000 men and women. I bring a record of leadership and extensive experience managing large organizations, qualities that I will carry into the role of Assistant Secretary. Throughout my career in both public and private sectors, I've emphasized collaboration and will bring this approach to the Department of the Interior, working closely with states, tribes, local communities, and industry to develop decisions that benefit all. I also commit to ensuring that the bureaus under my authority carry out the directives established by Congress. This includes working to ensure that lease sales are conducted on a regular and predictable basis, providing the certainty necessary for long-term investment, meeting our natural resource needs, and fulfilling the requirements of the law amid rapidly growing energy demand. As a young White House staffer 20 years ago, I served on multiple trips overseas as efforts were made to secure oil and gas imports due to our perceived national energy scarcity. In the following years, in my career in the energy services and equipment sector, I had a front row seat to the shale revolution that has taken us from energy scarcity to energy abundance and enabled the ability to strategically provide resources to our allies. It's driven my passion for American innovation, energy resilience, and respect for our nation's resources. I appreciate meeting with many of you and learning of your specific focus areas in public lands management. And if confirmed, I will always keep at the forefront of my mind the critical mission of protecting and managing our natural resources, ensuring that we fully utilize our federal lands and waters to benefit all Americans. Thank you for the honor of appearing before you today and for considering my nomination, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Beyer. And now, Mr. Garish.
Yes, Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, members of the committee, and professional staff, thank you for the opportunity to appear today as a nominee for the position of Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy at the U.S. Department of Energy. It is truly an honor to appear before the committee, and I appreciate the confidence President Trump and Secretary Wright have shown in nominating me for this role. First, I would like to thank my family, and especially my wife, Dory Stacks, who has been my strength and support as I embark on this position and this important task. Unfortunately, due to a scheduling conflict, she has to watch this on the web, although I have a number of friends here and colleagues that have joined me today. My career has largely been devoted to energy, mainly in the field of nuclear, and much of my time has been spent devoted to public service, largely at the U.S. Department of Energy, originally as General Counsel and later as Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy, and also in Congressional, Intergovernmental, and Public Affairs, and most recently as Assistant Secretary for International Affairs. And first, I'd like to thank Senator Heinrich for the note relative to the statement that I made. I cannot believe that it was 42 years ago, but I can assure the committee that I abide by those same principles today. In addition to energy, I also served as Federal Inspector of the Alaska Natural Gas Transportation System and as member of the President's Commission on Catastrophic Nuclear Accidents, also known as the Price-Anderson Commission. Throughout my career, I have worked closely with this committee, and I can remember many late nights working with professional staff and senators assisting with legislative efforts, and I hope that that would continue in the future. I had the opportunity to serve as Assistant Secretary for Nuclear Energy in the late 1980s, and the position was organized differently at the time, and nuclear energy faced different challenges than it does today. Today, we're on the threshold of making nuclear a significant contributor to our nation's energy future and make a true comeback for this important source of affordable, reliable, and safe energy, and to become a source for industrial heat for chemical production, mining, and other uses. While in the private sector, my time was spent largely on nuclear projects. Notably, I often worked with nuclear countries, helping them develop their programs, talent, and expertise consistent with the IAEA programs for new nuclear nations. If I may, let me briefly give you my vision on some of the important work that I would hope to achieve if I have the privilege of confirmation. First and foremost, as soon as feasible, we need to build a new reactor, either a large or small or SMR or micro reactor. It is important for us to proceed with development of advanced reactors and their licensing and siting. Nuclear offers an extraordinary capacity to meet the coming increased electrical demand in a reliable, affordable, and safe way. This is important and we need to get on with the building of the next generation of nuclear plants. Second, the development of a robust domestic enrichment industry is essential for our national security, and we must conduct a realistic evaluation of our current system under development and determine if our current tech methodology will work and provide the needed actions to protect our national security. Third, we should evaluate the status of the international market for U.S. nuclear developers and supply chains overseas to ensure that we maintain strong positioning for U.S. products and services and build the long-term relationships needed for U.S. companies, building upon our strong nuclear culture with the highest standards of nonproliferation. We should also consider the further use of intergovernmental agreements to promote our U.S. interests. And finally, we need to begin to resolve the nuclear waste dilemma and work with Congress, communities, and states on solutions. If confirmed, it would be my honor to work cooperatively with the Congress, especially this committee, on achieving these and other objectives. Hopefully, I can contribute to the development of this important energy source. Again, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to appear today, and if confirmed, I look forward to working with the members of this committee and members of the staff in furthering the interest of nuclear energy for the benefits of the United States, and I look forward to responding to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Garish. Now we're going to turn to Mr. Abbey, but I would like to invite our colleague, Senator Murkowski, who was chair of this committee for quite a number of years, for an introduction of Mr. Abbey.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great to be able to welcome all of you here this morning. Pretty incredible group of nominees that we have in front of us. Some of you have been around for a while, and we welcome you back. But it's really my honor to be able to reintroduce Tristan Abbey to the committee. Mr. Abbey is a proud alumnus of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. He served on my team from 2012 to 2017. He took a little bit of a break, and then he came back from 2019 to 2020. So he's probably more familiar with this side of the dais over here, being used to sitting on the benches behind us. But really, it's a privilege. It's really an honor to have you in front of the committee at the witness tables as the President's choice to lead the Energy Information Administration. I'm going to tell you, as my colleagues, there is no one that I have met around here who has spent more time with EIA or with CRS. This is a gentleman who digs into the issues. He's really smart in the first place, so he knows a lot, but he goes so far below the surface to understand, to master the issues, and then applying this knowledge to help us make really good policy. He was instrumental in helping us lift the crude oil export ban with a strategy and an implementation plan that, in my view, was quite remarkable. When I had challenges, when I had tough policy questions, I brought Tristan into it, and I did so because he's thoughtful, he's analytical, he brings rigor to everything, he's a true expert in his arena. These are all qualities that we would ask for in an EIA administrator. I think it's worth noting that 4 former EIA administrators agree with me. They've written a letter supporting Mr. Abbey, so I would ask unanimous consent for that letter to be added to the hearing record following Mr. Abbey's testimony.
Without objection.
So, Tristan, again, thank you. You did extraordinary work for the committee, and I hope that the committee will recognize that by giving you its strongest support. But I'm pleased to see you today. I don't know if your wife and baby are here, but yeah, right behind you there. We've kind of watched everybody grow up together, so welcome back, and it's an honor to introduce you.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. We'll start 5-minute rounds of questioning. I want to check with our ranking member, Senator Heinrich. Did I miss somebody? Oh, I'm sorry. You want an opening statement too? Usually after Senator Murkowski goes, with her all her time as chairwoman, nobody can improve on that. But in your case, Mr. Abbey, we're going to let you go ahead with an opening statement.
Thank you very much, Senator Hoeven and Senator Murkowski, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you, Chairman Lee, Ranking Member Heinrich, members of this committee. It is an honor to appear before you today. I am grateful to President Trump for the nomination to serve as Administrator of the Energy Information Administration, and to Energy Secretary Chris Wright for his confidence in me to serve in this position. My wonderful wife, Jen, is in attendance. It was during my first tour here on the committee staff that I met her, and during the second that we were married. Our 2 children are a bit too young for this event, but in due time, I hope they watch the video. These 3 ladies, Jen, Evelyn, and Josephine, bring more joyful light into my life than I ever could have imagined. When I was a kid, my parents, Phil and Willowan, led my brother Ian and me on a couple great adventures to the Middle East. Abcake leaves a lasting impression on a kindergartner, and a teenager doesn't forget the Suez Canal. I can never thank my dad and mom enough for showing us the world in all of its richness. Times weren't always easy, but I hope they don't regret it, because I never will. I could never have predicted the path of my career, one possible only here in the United States. After a brief stint in finance, I arrived here on committee staff in 2012. Eager to learn, I worked on the economics of basically all things energy, even dabbling in the lands portfolio, the complexity of which makes the electric grid look like a game of tic-tac-toe. In many ways, I grew up here on the committee staff. In 2017, I was honored to join the first Trump administration, initially on the beachhead team at the Department of Energy and later the National Security Council and National Economic Council staff. Following my time at the White House complex, I returned here to the committee staff, where I worked on Washington's response to the COVID-19 pandemic when the oil price fell below 0. Serving the American people in various roles within the federal government has been the honor of my life. Each of these public sector opportunities was a blessing. None of this work could have been accomplished without frequent and persistent engagement with the EIA. Some will say that the administrator of the EIA should not have this deep level of exposure to the policymaking world. On the contrary, leadership that understands the demands of policymaking and the needs of policymakers is exactly what the EIA requires at this critical time. If confirmed as administrator, I would have 3 priorities. First, as a member of the President's team, I would fulfill my statutory role of providing objective energy data and analysis to the American people and to policymakers. In Ranking Member Heinrich's term, the common set of nonpartisan facts. Having served inside the government at both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue and outside as a think tanker and private sector consultant, I have seen EIA from a wide variety of perspectives. The reputation that the agency has built is one I pledge to steward carefully, if confirmed. Second, EIA is in urgent need of revitalization. It is still the world's premier energy data agency, but this did not happen overnight. Our nation invested billions of dollars and nearly 50 years to make it so. If confirmed, I would ensure that this investment continues to pay off. In my view, EIA must clear the decks of unfinished projects, recruit and retain the best talent, develop the most powerful analytical abilities, and modernize its information systems. Finally, I believe that existing congressional mandates for EIA should be executed upon. Two stand out in particular. One is the expansion of global energy data collection and analysis. The other is the establishment of a critical minerals outlook. I know that this committee is particularly interested in both issues, and I believe achieving these two goals alone would go a long way to placing the EIA on sound footing for a generation. Thank you for your time, and thanks again to President Trump and Secretary Wright for their confidence. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Abbey. At this point, we'll kick off 5-minute rounds of questions. I do want to check with the ranking member to see if he had anything before we begin the questions.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Travnik, if confirmed, will you prioritize the development and maintenance of Western water infrastructure to ensure communities, farmers, and ranchers continue to have access to reliable and affordable water supplies?
Microphone.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven, for that question. We know that infrastructure for water supply is extremely important across the West. We were making sure in the state of North Dakota that we had resources able to make sure that we were able to get that affordable, reliable water supply to people. So if confirmed in this role, yes, I'm committed to working towards that as well.
Thank you. Also, talk about the importance that USGS continues on a regular basis to update estimates of recoverable oil and gas reserves, and talk about what you can do to continue to enhance that energy development.
Senator, as it relates to the USGS, we know that their body of work is extremely important. They play a critical role as it relates not only to the critical mineral list, but also as it relates to oil and gas assessments. So making sure that we've got the expertise on that and to be able to keep up with those studies and those demands that we're seeing to make sure that we have that dominance of energy here in America. So yes, so continue to work on that as well.
What are your top 3 priorities? What are the top 3 things you're going to accomplish going into this position?
Senator, if confirmed, the top 3 priorities that I would be looking at, we know that there's a lot of discussion right now related to the Colorado River. We've got some looming deadlines that are in front of us next year. So we're going to have to work really closely with those seven states within the basin. At the same time, also the critical minerals list. We know that that is due this year. We're going to have to be working really closely with our federal agencies, our different stakeholders, the public, as we work to get that list put together, get that updated based on what we are hearing from the public. And then getting back to where we started the conversation earlier was looking at infrastructure. We know that we've got drought across the West, across the country. So we're going to have to look at all those different tools in the toolbox, making sure that we've got modernized systems out there, making sure that we're looking at aquifer recharge, looking at water reuse, wastewater. So really just looking at that suite of possibilities as we try to get water where it's needed.
Thank you. Ms. Beyer, we've got a lot of resources that are owned by the public, but that interface with private ownership as well. And so BLM runs across that all the time. Are you committed to maximizing access to development of those resources in a responsible manner? And will you work with me on my North Dakota Trust Lands Completion Act, which helps make sure that everyone is treated fairly in that development, whether it's a public interest or a private interest?
Yes, sir. Senator, I appreciated our visit about that. And if I'm confirmed, I absolutely look forward to working with you. There are multiple uses there for those lands. And you know, if confirmed, like I said, I look forward to working with you on that.
How about NEPA timelines, right? I mean, because delay can be defeat, right? We need certainty out there for everybody, for all involved. So what about these NEPA timelines and getting things done, again, in a transparent, responsible way, but getting things done?
Sir, I think we can all agree that permitting should be streamlined. This committee has done extraordinary work on that, and if I'm confirmed, I hope to work with this committee moving forward. But absolutely, you know, coming from the oilfield services sector of the business, this is a 650,000 plus workforce that develops energy in the U.S. And if our companies can't get permits to produce, permits to build transmission, we will be behind in answering the increasing energy demand. And so that, sir, is a top priority for me, is to be able to assist and help with getting a more reasonable timeline on our permitting system.
Thank you. Mr. Garish, how are we going to get past some of the public perceptions and concerns in regard to nuclear, or as one of my good friends and a former president used to say, nuclear energy? How are we going to develop nuclear energy and get people to be comfortable that we're developing it in a safe, reliable way with a good management plan for, you know, the nuclear waste?
Well, Senator, nuclear is in fact one of the safest forms of energy available today. And I think it is a matter of communicating with the public and making sure that they understand what's happened. We need to make sure that we have a good public affairs component to every nuclear plant, that the community understands exactly what a nuclear plant is and what the sort of fears that they have are really unfounded.
So what is the one thing you would say to people and want them to remember in regard to safely handling nuclear energy?
Well, in terms of this, the record is indisputable in terms of the safety of nuclear plants.
Okay, that's strong. Appreciate that very much. Thanks to all of you. And Mr. Abbey, I'm not going to have a question for you because I understand Senator Murkowski's got a lot of them, so we'll wait for that. Ranking Member Heinrich.
Thank you, Senator Hoeven. Ms. Beyer, as Assistant Secretary, you will oversee management of more than 245 million acres of public land. This land belongs to all Americans, including every single one of my constituents, and Americans highly value their ability to access these lands for hunting, fishing, and other recreational uses. Do you support the large-scale divestment of our public lands?
Sir, only Congress has the authority to dispose of any public lands, but I believe that our public lands have multiple use mandate, and they can be used for energy production, recreation, any number of other uses for the benefit of all Americans.
Dr. Travnik, you've been on staff of the department for several months now, and I appreciate many of our conversations, but that gives you specific insights into decisions that have already been made at the department. The new NEPA guidance for energy projects that the Secretary announced last week does not make any mention of tribal consultation. However, it requires all reviews to be done within 14 to 28 days. I have personally never seen meaningful tribal consultation completed in that time frame. So my question is the administration proposing to eliminate tribal consultation for these projects?
Thank you, Senator Heinrich, and I also appreciate some of the conversations that we've had already. So we know that there's been a lot of conversations for a long time related to try to streamline the permitting processes, right? I think we've all been frustrated by that. We've seen some of the discussions here within this committee as well. So we are really just trying to figure out how we can move forward while still meeting the different requirements as well, right? We know that ESA was mentioned in there, NHPA. Also, we know that we will have to engage with tribes. So at the same time, how do we get the permits out the door, get the infrastructure in place, develop the resources that we need? So it's going to be trying to work on all the above, working with ESA, NHPA, and also engaging with the tribes.
As someone who strongly supported permitting reform, and a majority of the members on this committee did, I think we largely support getting to yes or no faster. But I really want to want to urge you to make sure that that tribal consultation process is not a check-the-box exercise, that it is meaningful. I'm going to switch gears a little bit back to you, Ms. Beyer. 2 weeks ago, actually, let me quote back something that you said just a few minutes ago. If our companies can't get permits, we will be behind. I agree with that sentiment. 2 weeks ago, Secretary Burgum sent a letter to the acting director of BOEM, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, ordering an unprecedented stop work order to Equinor's Empire Wind project off the coast of New York. That's a fully permitted project. It has undergone rigorous review. It's already under construction, and it would power 500,000 homes. Canceling this project is a job killer for the skilled trades. And my concern is it will squash any faith that the private sector has in the federal permitting process. If you can do this to one project of one energy type, you can do it to another of a completely different energy type. So if fully permitted projects are subjected to arbitrary stop work orders, how can we expect the private sector to commit capital to those large, expensive projects?
Senator, thank you for that question. As you know, I have not been confirmed and so did not participate in that decision-making. I agree with you.
Speak to the larger issue, like
I
not
agree
the
with
specificity of that issue, yeah.
Right. While we need all forms of energy that we can get our hands on, there is a premium to secure, reliable, and affordable energy. I'm from Texas. We have a lot of wind energy there. I appreciate that it's additive, but there is a premium to secure, affordable, and reliable energy that is not weather dependent, in my view. And I will adhere to the guidance of the Secretary if I'm confirmed.
In your view, should permitting be transparent and predictable?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Heinrich. Senator Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, everyone here, especially these great nominees and all their families. I think about all the people that are out here in our audience and everything. I think about a young man that is intrigued and fascinated and motivated by the process of everything that's going on here. His name's Mikey Wolford, and I absolutely want everybody here to just take just a moment and try to listen to what I would have to say, because I'm from a real energy state. And I've been in the energy business forevermore. And absolutely, I know a lot, an awful lot about energy. And I can tell everyone here, whether they're on our side of the aisle, the other side of the aisle, it doesn't matter to me. Really, what really should matter to all of us is we have a crisis right now, and it's looming like Godzilla standing in the background right now for all of us. For every single last one of us. And we've got to react, or Godzilla will surely have a good day and we'll have a bad day. And to react is just this simple. And I've said it over and over and over and over. You're going to have to decide, America. We're going to have to decide either for homes or jobs and energy and industry. We're going to have to decide. And so with all that being said, you know, these nominees, I would say to you just this. You have a responsibility here that is second to none. It's unbelievable, the pressure, the responsibility, how we are relying on you right now. As you go forward, and I surely hope and pray you'll be confirmed without any problems. But with all that being said, today, like it or not like it, in this country, energy is everything. Everything. No matter what anybody says. It is the answer and it is the key to Emerald City, period. Now, that's all there is to it. So with all that being said, I'm sure that you have areas of expertise like crazy. I'm sure you have a passion and a love for our lands. You know, Dr. Travnik, you know, you spoke of, you know, how you grew up and loved to hunt and fish and everything. Well, that's me all over. That's absolutely me in every way. And I'm sure all of you feel exactly the same. No one wants to harm our environment. No one wants to do anything to our waters. Absolutely, but we have got to react, because there are bad days looming right in front of us if we don't react. That's what our president is trying to do. That's what he does with an emergency in regard to energy. So I would say to you just this, and I've got just a couple of real quick questions and everything. I would say in regard to water, you know, many of our communities are very rural, and we rely on private wells. What resources, and this question is for Dr. Travnik, what resources will your department provide to assist these communities in assuring the safety and reliability of their water supplies?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. We know as we're looking in rural areas and within communities that water infrastructure is going to continue to be more important. So as it relates to, if confirmed with the Bureau of Reclamation, I'll be looking at the different authorities that we do have, looking for opportunities where there might be availability for cost share, and at the same time just trying to see too what partnerships might be as we look at those local communities.
Thank you. I've got to say one other thing, and I don't have a whole lot of time, but Senator Hoven is a really sharp guy, and he's a friend. And he made a statement just a second ago, and he's dead on the money. He's splitting the bulls out like you can't imagine. He said, delay can be defeat. Well, I've never heard it put that way, but it is absolutely splitting the bullseye. You got to move. You've got to have a real passion. You've got to move. And you've got to know the world depends on you. Every single country in this world, the more energy they have, the longer their people live, the healthier their people are. We need to quit being afraid of energy. You got a lot of good people out there that know how to extract and make energy for all of us. We need to let them go. We need to turn them loose, and we need to quit being afraid. Absolutely, the shadow can scare us to death. We don't need to worry about Godzilla in the closet unless we don't act. And then if we don't act, Godzilla will act, I promise you. That's all I've got. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Justice. Thanks for your comments and your strong message. Appreciate it very much. Senator King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Beyer, a couple of things. I just want to follow up on Senator Hoven's question. The problem with the effective revocation of a permit that had already been granted is the chilling effect that has on developers generally, whether it's wind power or oil and gas or anything else. That was an extraordinary action, and having been an energy developer myself, you spend millions of dollars and months and years to get your permits. And to have a permit effectively canceled after you had gone through that entire process, the concern has to be not necessarily about this particular project, but what this says to developers generally about the reliability and certainty of the permitting process. And I joined with Senator Barrasso and others, Senator Manchin, on permitting reform. I'm very strongly in favor of permitting reform, but a step which withdraws an already issued permit, I hope that you will agree, is a dangerous message to the development community generally.
Senator, I agree with that completely. The community that is developing, that is producing, that is building transmission, the midstream companies that will move our energy across the country, they absolutely need certainty in our permitting systems so that they can make financial investment decisions.
I appreciate that. Let me go on to a different question. Thank you for that answer. You answered Senator Heinrich about conveyance of public lands. You said only Congress can do that. Can I press you a little bit further and say that you will not support the conveyance or transfer of public lands without congressional approval?
Sir, if I am nominated, or if I am confirmed, I will follow the law as directed by Congress. I know that.
But let me talk just in general policy. Do you think there's any justification for the conveyance of public lands in a more general sense? And I don't mean little in-holdings and that kind of thing where we do those things all the time that make total sense. But I'm talking about a more broad program of conveyance of public lands to states or private interests. As a matter of policy, do you support that or do you oppose it?
I believe that not every acre of public land holds the exact same value, and that states know best in how they want to use their public lands. And so
So
I
you're
hope,
saying that you're okay with conveying federal public lands to states? Is that what you just said?
I hope to be a collaborative partner with Congress on that.
Well, I hope you'll take that very seriously because I have grave concerns about conveyance of public lands. It belongs to the public, and the public should have a response, and the public's voice is right here. So in your initial statement, only Congress can do this. I hope that you'll live up to that in your position. Mr. Garish, I've been in a number of meetings recently about SMRs and development of the future of nuclear power. It strikes me that it's not going to happen on its own in the private sector because it's simply too expensive, that there needs to be a kind of Chips and Science Act, if you will, for new nuclear technology with federal support for the first 5 or some number because the expense is so great of developing a brand new, highly complex piece of technology. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with that completely. The private sector cannot.
And the record show that he said he agreed with me completely. Thank you.
My position on this is that we need to develop a series of mechanisms for financing of reactors. The private sector can do some of this. The loan office can help. That was very helpful in the Vogtle plants, as you know, and has been helpful in other plants that we have. In addition to that, we have to look for other sources of financing and even grants in some cases. And we do have some grant programs currently.
Particularly for the early prototypes.
Getting prototypes to work and to be tested and to demonstrate the materials that you need for licensing. That is a program that we currently have underway and we are going to implement at the Idaho National Laboratory. And that's an extremely important part of the process. We have to get these plants past the first of a kind. We have to build 5 of them or 10 of them to be able to demonstrate that these can be built in factories and we can move forward. So I agree with you. This is a complex matter as to how we go through the process, but we have to look for financing tools and financing interest and people that are interested in doing this, including the government.
Mr. Garish, I really appreciate your willingness to continue to serve and to demonstrate that those of us who remember President Reagan still have something to offer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Abbey, just very briefly, we need objective data to make good policy. It's as simple as that. And I hope in your position, and I think you have the background to do so, you use the term objective data. That's what's needed. Straight up, honest data without political bias that will then help us to make good policy. Are you committed to objective data?
Absolutely, Senator.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Murkowski, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just smiling because I was given a statement from Senator Murkowski, who was before this committee, or on this committee, in July 15th, 1986. And apparently at that time, my father introduced you, Mr. Garish, to the committee as you were being nominated to become the federal inspector for the Alaska Natural Gas Transportation System. So as my colleague has said, there's a few from the Reagan days that not only understand things, but understand things so well that they are back yet again. So a little bit of committee history here. So just want to acknowledge that. Ms. Beyer, I want to speak to you a couple questions here, and I love your connections to Alaska. It takes tough individuals to run the Mayor's Marathon, and just love the fact that you like to spend family time up there. So you're familiar with Alaska. The last time we had a Senate-confirmed ASLM position was an Alaskan, Joe Belash. He obviously got a lot of these issues that are before Interior, before BLM, and you're going to be asked to pick up a lot in this space, as you well know. I know that you are familiar with the No More Wilderness Clause that was contained, or that is contained in ANILCA. I just need your commitment to me and to the committee that you will ensure that BLM and other agencies under your purview abide by this No More Clause, and even going a little bit beyond that, whether or not you'd be willing to work with the delegation to evaluate what has happened in Alaska since passage of ANILCA as a result of BLM's oftentimes unilateral decisions to withdraw more and more land from public access. So just a willingness to work with the delegation on this.
Absolutely, ma'am. Given my personal affinity for the state, it's one of the things that I am most looking forward to working on if I am confirmed. I look forward to spending time there and working with you on all of those issues.
Good. We will invite you back often. And speaking of Alaska land conveyances, as you know, we're dealing with the lifting of outdated public land orders, long overdue land conveyances that are owed under our Alaska Statehood Act, as well as Native Claims Settlement Act. We have to resolve submerged lands issues. These are matters that require a great deal of detail, time, and resources. But we've been a state now for long enough, and I think some of these promises that were made at statehood need to be completed. We need your help to that, and I would just like your commitment to that.
Absolutely, ma'am. If I'm lucky enough to be confirmed, I look forward to working on that.
Good, good, good. And last question to you. I know you're not in the building yet, but the department has just recently announced a new 5-year program for offshore development, as well as what they're calling a new high Arctic planning area. And I get where the administration is coming from. It's basically put everything on the table and then figure out how we might want to winnow some of this back, actually where we want leasing to occur. As you well know, in Alaska, there are places that we seek to develop aggressively, responsibly, and then there are areas that we don't. So I would just ask your commitment, again, that you would work with the Alaska delegation. We've got Alaskans that are here in the room as part of Alaska Day today, but especially our North Slope leaders to determine where leasing is appropriate and perhaps not appropriate within the Alaska OCS.
Absolutely. I look forward to being briefed on the details of that, and I will take a very close look at it.
Very good. Appreciate that. Mr. Abbey, I am going to give you an opportunity to share a little bit of your vision here. You don't have much time, but you have spent a lot of time thinking about many of these things. You mentioned the vision that you have for the critical minerals and the specific outlook. But is what we were able to accomplish when it came to lifting the oil export ban, and again, the strategy, the implementation, can we do this with critical minerals? Can we do this with LNG exports? Is this something that in your new role you think you can bring to the table, looking at the objective analytical data that EIA brings to bear? But can we work towards developing better strategic approaches to these very important issues?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. In my view, objectivity is a discipline. It is something that you can practice, and in various capacities. I have been an objective steward of data. In other capacities, I've been a policy, I've had more of a policy role. If confirmed as administrator, I would no longer be in a policy-making role. But I do believe that the crude oil export debate illustrates the importance of EIA. There were a lot of think tanks and consulting firms that were writing reports about crude oil exports, but all of them were using EIA data. EIA data, to borrow Ranking Member Heinrich's term, once again, this common set of facts. And I think the EIA can absolutely play a critical role in helping anybody who is trying to develop any kind of energy policy to equip them with the information that they need.
It's a good answer.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I learned from the best.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Murkowski. Ms. Beyer, I'd like to start with you, if that's okay. I'm sorry. I forgot. Senator Cortez Masto, that was very bad. You're up to bat. Thank you.
Well, as chairman, I respect your position, so thank you. First of all, congratulations. Congratulations on your nominations. Welcome to the family members that are here. It's an exciting time. Thank you so much. Let me start with you, Mr. Gersh. I'm sure you're not surprised. I'm from Nevada. And this is a question I ask everyone from the Department of Energy, starting with Secretary Chris Wright, who provided the following QFR response during his nomination process. He said, "The people of Nevada are not in favor of Yucca Mountain, and thus President Trump and I do not support Yucca Mountain as a waste repository." My question to you is, do you agree with this statement?
Yes.
Thank you. If confirmed, will you maintain efforts to establish a consent-based repository site selection process?
I would like to speak to that, if I may.
Please.
I have been concerned over the word consent-based. I would prefer something that sounds more like collaborative. In other words, I would like to collaborate with states, not the idea of consent suggests that you're doing something to the states that you don't want them, that they may not want. I would prefer to work collaboratively with the states and determine what states might be interested in this potential opportunity and whether there are things that could be added to it and benefits. And that is a process that we could enter over a period of time. And so I would propose initially to go with a system that would be more collaborative than consent-based.
Can I ask then if there is a consent-based legislation and the consent is really taking into consideration whether the states, including Nevada and the stakeholders, agree to any nuclear waste being sited in their state, you would take that into consideration and would not force it upon them if they did not agree to it?
Generally, I guess my belief is that if the state is not interested, then the collaborative process would probably terminate.
Okay. And so that law and legislation, when we talk about consent-based and every state being treated equally, that should include the state of Nevada?
Well, the legislation that I think that you're referring to, there is no administrative position on it at this time. So I'm not in a position to say one way or the other.
Thus, the superseding legislation to allow all states to be treated equally, including the state of Nevada. You would support that if there was superseding legislation?
Well, I'm not in a position today to tell you legislatively, to give you a position on behalf of the administration.
So let me just say, previously, the Secretary has said he would support it. So I'm a little confused why you wouldn't, but we can have further conversation about this. I am concerned about your position, however, but I need to get on to some other questions here. But let's have further conversation.
I understand that we are scheduling a meeting, hopefully, that we can talk about this and the collaborative approach. And generally, your suggestions, I'm very interested. And I think as in terms of entering this position, if confirmed, I would really like to get your views as one of the first people I talk to on this.
Good. I look forward to the conversation. Dr. Travnik, bless you. Dr. Travnik, you talked about the Colorado River. Thank you very much. This is a priority for all of the basin states along the Colorado River. We know that we have deadlines coming up. The guidelines for future water allocations expire in 2027. There's negotiations going on right now. The hope is that the basin states will come together and agree to the guidelines and how they're going to manage the Colorado River. My question to you is, if confirmed, how will you prioritize this process to ensure that the basin can reach that necessary consensus and avoid litigation before time runs out?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Yes, as discussed earlier, Colorado River is going to be front and center. If confirmed, it'll be one of my top priorities to hit the ground running on right away. We know that we've got to work with the 7 basin states. It needs to be consensus-driven, state-led. We don't want this to be decided by a judge. So it's going to be my top priority.
And I look forward to working with you. I know all of the basin states, we do as well. One final question, let me ask you, because this came to my attention. Just recently, talking with my electric co-ops who are concerned about hydropower from the dam, Hoover Dam, as well as Glen Canyon Dam. But let me just talk a little bit about Hoover Dam. In Congress, we previously made significant investments through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act to improve water infrastructure and to mitigate drought conditions along the river, and you talked a little bit about that. Unfortunately, many of those funds are currently halted. Additionally, Colorado River contract customers have been working with the Bureau of Reclamation to receive some of those bipartisan infrastructure law funds to install wide head turbines that can operate at low levels and continue to generate the hydropower that my companies and Nevadans need. If these turbines are not installed and production generation drops due to the low water level that has been set by the Bureau of Reclamation, customers in Nevada will be forced to replace these hydropower resources with more expensive power, impacting power prices for rural communities in Nevada. And so my question to you is, can you commit to me to work to release those funds that were allocated by Congress in the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, that addresses those needs, specifically those projects that we need along the Colorado River? Would you commit to working with me to release those funds?
Senator, thank you for the question. So as it relates to hydropower, right, we know that Reclamation is the second largest producer of hydropower. It's extremely important. It's extremely important to have those low costs related to the energy production as well. So as we look at those different funds, appreciate the overview related to what those funds have been sitting and supposed to go towards. So if confirmed, committed to looking into that, just to understand more of what it is and how that could help.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cortez Masto. Ms. Beyer, let's start with you. We've got about 700 miles of our southern border that consists of federal land. And on a number of occasions, over and over and over again, over many years, federal land managers have blocked access or delayed access to Customs and Border Protection to that land. They want to keep them out of that land in the name of environmental protection. But meanwhile, illegal border crossings themselves have caused massive environmental degradation, including leaving trash piles, damaged ecosystems, wildfires, and other problems. If confirmed, how will you prioritize preventing environmental damage that may be caused by illegal immigration?
I believe that the local stakeholders know best what is going on those public lands, and I would instruct the BLM to work collaboratively with people on the ground to ensure that we're making the best use of the land.
It's certainly not an environmentally neutral thing to allow the border to be open, and so that certainly has to be taken into account. Dr. Travnik, a federal decision last year requires the bypass of hydropower generation at Glen Canyon Dam to control the smallmouth bass, a species that itself threatens the ESA-listed humpback chub. Now, restricting hydropower generation does a lot of things, including forcing customers to purchase more expensive replacement power. This is also depleting the Basin Fund, which supports critical infrastructure along the Colorado River that the Colorado River Basin states need and rely on. If confirmed, how will you balance ESA compliance on the one hand with the need to protect affordable hydropower and benefit American families and otherwise address the needs of the Colorado River Basin states?
Thank you, Senator Lee, and I really appreciate the conversation yesterday as well. We know as we're looking at the Colorado River and we're looking at how those dams are operated and the energy that goes with it, that we are going to have some of that bounce. There was that decision that was completed last year, right, that does lean in a little bit more on the looking at that reducing and impacting the hydropower energy. So if confirmed, committed to looking into it and trying to figure out how we can still rely on that lower cost of energy.
Much appreciated. Thank you. Mr. Abbey, in 2021, Congress directed EIA to produce a critical minerals outlook and to deepen its capabilities in international analysis. It's now 2025, and we haven't seen the report. If confirmed, how do you view the international critical materials landscape? And what would you do as the administrator of EIA to ensure that we have the best information available to strengthen our supply chains?
Thank you very much, Chairman Lee, for that question. There are two great Americans in the audience who I did not mention in my opening statement, my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, Pat and Rick Bruneau, who can attest to the fact that although I am extremely interested in the critical minerals issue, I am not presently employed at DOE. I am blissfully living a life in Tampa at the moment. I think the issue that you raise is absolutely
Washington's
important.
a lot like Tampa. You won't notice the difference.
I think the issue that you raise, Senator, is absolutely important. One of the first things I would do, if confirmed, is meet with the team to understand what steps, if any, have been taken to adhere to the statutory guidance from Congress to establish that outlook. As you mentioned, it was directed in 2021 and does not exist today. If confirmed, it would exist.
Thank you. Mr. Garish, I'd love seeing the reference earlier to the other Senator Murkowski talking to the, well, not the other Theodore Garish, but the same one, just in a different era. Our country is facing a looming energy crisis due to the growth of energy-intensive industries and, in many cases, the retirement of dispatchable and firm generation resources. In response, many states, including my own state of Utah, are taking steps to significantly increase their production. The state of Utah, through Operation Gigawatt, is working to double its energy capacity over the next 10 years, an ambitious, but I believe achievable ambition. And it's leading the way in making it easier to build new nuclear energy as part of that same effort. As energy demand continues to grow, we need to increase our supply with reliable, affordable, clean baseload generation, like nuclear. If confirmed, what will you do in your role as Assistant Secretary over the Office of Nuclear Energy to make sure that we get continued cooperation, rather that we get continued operation of the existing nuclear fleet and make sure that we get new nuclear plants up, running, and online as soon as possible?
Senator, nuclear definitely has a role in the future and will play an important part. And what I believe that we have to do initially is get a plant licensed and operating here as soon as possible. There's a number of programs that the department currently has underway, the Advanced Nuclear Project, Advanced Nuclear Reactor Program, that is really to facilitate first movers to get the advanced reactors into the marketplace. Similarly, there are programs right now at Idaho National Laboratory where we can begin the testing of prototypes, full-size prototypes, to begin to have new reactors available into the market. The key is we need to build one, we need to license one, and we need to do it in an economic way. And that process is going to take a little time, but we need to get started with it immediately, and that's an important aspect of sort of my plans, if confirmed, that I would really intend to begin with.
Now, I realize the office you've been nominated to fill plays a different role, but are there benefits that could be derived from a collaboration between your office and the Nuclear Regulatory Commission to accelerate the process?
Absolutely, and I think one of the very interesting ideas that has been suggested is a very close collaboration with the our office as they begin to test the new reactors and look and work with the Nuclear Regulatory Commission on ways in which licensing could be enhanced, and we could do research that is directly related to the of the information needed to accelerate the license process.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Senator Padilla, you're up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses that are here today. I want to begin with an idea, an opportunity. I think that's not just near and dear to me, important for the state of California, but can be critical, pun intended, for the country. Just last year, the Department of Energy announced the results of the most comprehensive analysis to date, quantifying the domestic lithium resources in California's Salton Sea region. The analysis confirms what we've known in California for a long time now, that the Salton Sea region has significant potential as a domestic source of critical minerals to reduce our reliance on minerals from foreign countries, particularly China. So it's a matter of both economic opportunity and national security. My question is for Ms. Beyer. What is your plan to develop domestic sources of lithium and ensure that we're not reliant on foreign sources?
Senator, thank you for the question. I agree with you 100%. We have to be very focused as a country on developing our own critical minerals to secure our supply chain and make us less dependent on other countries for those minerals. If I am confirmed and oversee that mining process at the office at OSMRE, while that's primarily around coal, I will do everything within the power of the ASLM to ensure that we can mine effectively and get America ahead on that process. We know that we're behind, and it is incredibly dangerous, specifically with regard to China.
Well, I think your chances of getting confirmed are pretty darn good. So let me jump into some specifics and into the weeds here. If confirmed, would you commit that brining as a means of extraction would be included in any administrative action to incentivize the domestic supply of critical minerals?
Sir, since I've not been in the building and I haven't been fully briefed on that, I can't say specifically what I would support, but I look forward to learning more about it. I hope to get in the building soon and to be able to get into the weeds of that.
Good. Well, I look forward to being part of that education coming up to speed, and would certainly ask that you work with California leaders to advance brining and other opportunities in the Lithium Valley region of California. My next questions are directed at Dr. Travnicek. Sorry. First of all, congratulations again on your nomination. Before we begin, I just wanted to confirm one thing. Have you, you're currently working as a senior advisor at the department, correct?
Senator, that's correct.
Okay, so if you've watched any of the confirmation hearings for your colleagues that have come through this committee, I'm sure you've heard me talk about our work in recent years to establish and to expand national monuments in California in recent years. And as I've talked about here in committee, and as I've raised with the Secretary directly, repeatedly, in person and on the phone and during his confirmation, the landscapes that I'm referring to have little or no energy or mineral potential. We were very, we worked to establish the boundaries very precisely with a mind to that. By the way, these monuments enjoy tremendous, literally overwhelming support in California across the board. And I raise that because I'd hate for it to see, I don't believe these monuments, new and expanded, fit really into this right-sizing effort that I'm hearing about the administration discussing when it comes to national monuments. So I'd like to know, have you been part of the discussions at the department to date in terms of the right-sizing of national monuments or the review process for protected landscapes for energy or mineral potential?
So Senator, as a senior advisor, I have been working on different executive orders and secretary orders that have come before the department. As it relates to this one, I have not been specifically involved.
Okay, well, if and when you do become involved, engagement with stakeholders is critical for this and all processes. And as far as we can tell, we're hearing about a review, we're hearing these monuments may be on the list, may not be on the list, maybe they are on the list. But the folks on the ground, the very leaders that advocated for the establishment and the expansion of these monuments have not been consulted. So I would ask that you commit to, again, if and when you become involved with this, to commit to true engagement with local leaders, both sides of the aisle, Democrats and Republicans, tribal leaders, conservationists, and others, as part of any so-called review. And I would further ask that you commit, just as the first Trump administration did, if there's going to be a suggested reconfiguration of the boundaries, that it be made public and a public comment period or an opportunity for public input be allowed before any final actions are taken. Can you commit to that as a good faith process with the public?
So Senator, if confirmed, I am committed to working with you and others that might have feedback related to that. As discussed, there are executive orders and secretarial orders, and it will be a different bureaus that'll be working on that versus the ones that I will be involved with, but I would bring any of those concerns and commitment to working with those colleagues that might be working on that initiative.
Okay, thank you very much.
Senator Gaines.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Beyer, the BLM's core principle is multiple use. That's congressionally mandated in the Federal Land Management and Policy Act. However, under the Biden administration, the Bureau of Land Management implemented the so-called Conservation and Landscape Health Rule that subverted the agency's multiple-use management of public lands. At that time, I heard a lot from my ranchers. I expressed deep concerns with this rule, especially as it pertained to the impacts on livestock grazing on public lands. Livestock operations are part of our Montana way of life, and cattle and sheep grazing on public lands provides benefits by mitigating the risk of wildfire, suppressing invasive grasses, improving wildlife habitat, while economically supporting our rural communities who are struggling across our state. Will you commit to reconsidering this overreaching rule that harms multiple use, destroys transparency and public input around land use decisions?
Senator, thank you for the question. I know that has been an extraordinary issue in your state, and I have followed that. And if I'm confirmed, I absolutely will follow the law, the multiple use mandate, and the contours of FLPMA that provide that.
Thank you. Earlier this month, we were very pleased that President Trump announced a number of executive orders to support coal in Montana. My generational roots go back 5 in Montana. I know many watch shows like Yellowstone, or they see Brad Pitt with a fly rod in his hand. You think it's only about fly fishing, and as a lifelong fly fisherman, I couldn't agree more. But we also have more recoverable coal than any state in the United States. It's one of the understated facts and something many don't know. So these EOs to support us in Montana with coal included rolling back the Miles City Resource Management Plan amendment prohibiting new coal development in eastern Montana. I'm grateful that Secretary Burgum likewise took steps to support energy development on our federal lands. I truly believe that BLM can balance coal, oil, gas, renewable energy development while also supporting conservation, recreation, and grazing resource. That really is the mandate from Congress. My question is, do you support the actions by the President and the Secretary to roll back these anti-energy rules like the Miles City RMP and the unreachable bonding rates and return the BLM to its true multiple-use mandate?
Senator, thank you. I think President Trump and Secretary Burgum have laid out a very bold vision for developing more American energy resources, and coal has a very important role in that. I believe in American innovation around reducing emissions and how effectively we can produce energy around coal. And so absolutely, sir, I commit to working with you on that and to following direction of the President and the Secretary.
You know, it ought to be a warning shot we saw happen in Spain and Portugal this past week about what happens when ideology and nonsense drives energy policy and where we get energy in terms of the balance between intermittent source of energy and baseload power. And I'm grateful with this administration, baseload power is cool again, and thank God. Dr. Travnik, the Bureau of Reclamation is currently working quickly to address the catastrophic failure of 2 siphons from the St. Mary River that are a critical part of the Milk River project that provides water to irrigators on Montana's Highline. I don't expect you to be an expert on this, but I want to raise your awareness here because you will be confirmed and you will be serving. I'm grateful for that. Additionally, I'm working to finish Montana's last tribal water compact. I've been working on tribal water compacts for much of my time back here in Congress. These are sometimes go over a century, back to certainly treaties, and getting these resolved on behalf of the irrigators and the tribe is one of our highest priorities. We're down to 1 left in Montana, and that's for the Fort Belknap Indian community, and we're making great progress on that. We're very close. This will improve infrastructure, economic development for both our tribal and our non-tribal water users. My question, will you work with me to ensure the continued success of these federal water projects so that farmers, ranchers, tribes, municipal users will have certainty over their water rights and their usage?
Senator, thank you for the overview of both of those important concerns that you have in trying to move those projects forward. I'm committed to working with you on those.
Thank you. And that St. Mary's project, by the way, many when you see beautiful movies and pictures of Montana see a lot of water. That's true. We actually are a semi-arid climate in Montana. It's pretty dry. In particular, St. Mary's is at. It's a very arid part of our state, and literally it's an artery, a lifeline of water that has been tragically interrupted because of an infrastructure failure, and it's times of the essence to get this completed so we can support our irrigators this year. I'm going to come out of time, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Senator Hickenlooper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Beyer, obviously Coloradans support conservation and protection for our public lands like most states. These lands boost the $17 billion recreation economy, not to mention all the wildlife and watershed benefits that accrue. You're nominated for a role that would oversee the Bureau of Land Management, which manages lands for multiple processes or uses. You're certainly experienced in the oil and gas side of things, but you're also going to have to transition to a broader lens now and look at making sure that we ensure healthy lands, diversity of landscapes, reliable access to outdoor recreation. Will you work with us to make sure that we maintain these approaches to conservation and protection of our public lands?
Senator, I appreciate you pointing that out, and absolutely I agree with you and commit to working with you on that.
Great, thank you. Mr. Garish, nuclear energy could play a huge role in our national security, and I share the frustration of many organizations, Nuclear Energy Institute, the Colorado Nuclear Alliance, Nuclear Innovation Alliance, that the DOE has let go more than half its staff at the Loan Program Office. The Loan Program Office, LPO, one of the most effective federal offices supporting new nuclear projects in the United States. How is the administration, from your perspective, plan to expand domestic nuclear energy while simultaneously dramatically reducing the staff that would be most critical for that expansion?
Well, I'm hopeful that as applications come into LPO for additional nuclear projects, that there is sufficient staff to handle them, and I see no reason that currently, and I'm not totally familiar with the staff situation in LPO, but I anticipate that we will have the staff to handle that.
So if you find there's insufficient staff, you will raise your voice and say, we need more staff.
Indeed.
Good. Good to hear that. Dr. Travnik, the Department of Interior recently announced some of the emergency permitting procedures to accelerate the development of domestic resources, critical minerals. As has been noted, this initiative seeks to reduce multi-year review processes to, well, as much as possible, but in some cases as quickly as 28 days. I'm an outspoken, I guess I'd say, supporter of bipartisan permitting reform. I emphasize bipartisan permitting reform. But I am concerned about some of these drastic actions. What are the litigation risks of taking such dramatic steps to accelerate these timelines without an act of Congress? In other words, aren't we creating far more obstacles and problems in the future than we as we seek to circumvent the existing structure? And then how do you justify operating under a national energy emergency while excluding key technologies like solar, wind, energy storage from these new permitting procedures?
Senator, thank you for the question. Yes, we have been directed through the presidential order in regards to the energy emergency that we see here in this country. I know that this committee has been active as it relates to finding ways to streamline the permitting processes. The team at Interior has been working very hard to try to see if there's any ways to streamline them even further. And that's where you did see this last week, where there was a new permitting process that was rolled out to try to expedite that, to make sure that we can develop the resources, also get the infrastructure needed to make sure that we're getting that clear energy dominance. At the same time, it also is looking at just ESA, NHPA. I know there was a question earlier also too related to tribes. So the department's going to work really hard to implement that.
Great, thank you. And I'll ask you each, just, there have been some, I think in some quarters, serious discussions about large-scale sales of public lands for the generation of revenue for the federal government. I just wanted to ask each of you to give your authentic opinion as to whether that's a worthy outcome. And I'm a great believer in budgets and frugality, but I think wide-scale sale of public lands just for the generation of revenue seems very ill-advised. I just want to hear each of your opinion on that.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. We know as it relates to federal lands, there's a lot of multi-use efforts that are associated with them.
I'm just talking about the sale. So I understand multi-use, and I understand that. And in some mountain towns, you can sell an acre or two from the BLM that they can use for affordable housing or workforce housing. I get that. I'm not against that. I'm talking about larger scale sale of public lands to generate revenue, solely to generate revenue for the federal government.
Yes, and at the Department of the Interior right now, we do have a directive through an executive order to review all of those public lands, seeing if there are any opportunities. So it would be working with the states, looking for opportunities to see if there is any opportunity.
So you're okay with that, all right?
Senator, Congress has the authority to dispose of public lands, and I agree with my colleague. From the Interior perspective, we would look to the states, any state looking to do a lands transfer.
So you said Congress has the authority, but then you're going to look to the states. So look to the states to advise Congress. That's the question. I'm not trying to be a trouble. I'm just trying to make sure we get on.
I understand, sir. I meant that in the context of, I'm sure there is a role for the Department of Interior. I do not currently work in the building, but my understanding of the Constitution is that it gives that authority to Congress.
Right, we agree. Mr. Garish.
Senator, I'm not familiar enough with this subject to be able to provide much of an opinion. However, it would seem to me that, as I understand it, that this is a matter for Congress.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I appreciate the issue that you raised as the nominee for the EIA administrator position, which is policy neutral. I unfortunately am not able to respond.
All right, thank you. I'm out of time.
Thank you, Senator Hickenlooper. Senator Gallego.
Thank you, Chairman and Ranking Member. My first question is for Dr. Travnik. One of the most pressing issues for my state is drought funding, and we continue to see challenges with funding freezes at the Bureau of Reclamation. If you're confirmed, these funds will be your responsibility. Reclamation has halted critical funding that has been a bridge to keep the Colorado River Basin system functioning. I'm concerned that these funds are being held, and I have heard reports that the department plans to hold funding until a 7-state agreement is reached. Do you commit to releasing all previously appropriated funding, and do you recognize the urgency of drought funding in the West?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. And as I've discussed before, we do know that drought is an extremely important issue that we're seeing here in the West, that we're all going to have to work really hard and all the different tools in the toolbox. As relates to the funding that might be put on pause right now, I'm committed to, if confirmed, looking into it further just to understand what is on pause.
Okay, just because for us it seems like it's not exactly the smartest move, because there are some states who would be absolutely happy to let this go to litigation, keep fighting it out, and then you're punishing some of the lower basin states that need this investment now, which will end up actually helping all of the basin in terms of their how many acre feet of water we need behind the dam. So just want to make sure you keep that in perspective. I'd like to also ask about the Northeastern Arizona Indian Water Rights Settlement Act. This would be the largest Indian water rights settlement ever enacted in the history of this country. You provide the settling tribes, the Navajo Nation, the Hopi tribe, the San Juan Southern Paiute tribe, with desperately needed water and infrastructure funding and water to actually even spur their economy. Without a settlement, other water users in the Colorado River Basin face uncertainty regarding the tribe's Colorado River water rights. So essentially, we don't know how much we have left if we haven't allocated what these tribes justly deserve. So this is particularly important because the Navajo Nation has one of the largest single outstanding claims in the whole Colorado River. Approximately 1/3 of Navajo homes still do not have running water even to this date. So this settlement will bring certainty to the basin and ensure tribes can thrive on their homeland. So will you commit to working with me and the Arizona delegation, bipartisan delegation, to finish this settlement?
So, Senator, I understand the importance of the Indian water rights settlements. When I was here during the first Trump administration, I had an opportunity to work with several of those tribal nations, so I'm committed to working with you on those.
Great, thank you. Questions for Mr. Garish. Appreciate our time yesterday talking about creative solutions for energy and fast deployment of nuclear energy. As you know, I'm very interested in SMRs, and they have a great potential to meet Arizona's rising energy demand. I've heard from communities that actually are very excited about the deployment of this technology, and so I was hoping that you and I can talk further about potential creative ways to actually have faster deployment. So will you commit to visiting Arizona and working together on fast deployment of SMRs, including the potential for their use on military bases in the state?
Yes, Senator, thank you for your time that we took to discuss this important topic. Arizona has a tremendous opportunity for nuclear development, and you are currently home of one of the most successful and largest nuclear plants. And I think that there are many opportunities going forward, and I look forward to working with you, including military bases for nuclear potential.
Thank you. Ms. Baer, Arizona is home, and thank you again for also speaking to me yesterday, is home to 12.1 million acres of BLM land, a department that you're going to oversee. Within these are national monuments that highlight the natural and cultural beauty of my state. One example is the ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument. The Grand Canyon is not only a natural wonder of the world and a sacred site for many tribes, it's an enormous economic driver for northern Arizona. It's the second most visited national park in the country. Loving the Grand Canyon isn't controversial. 80% of all Arizonans support the ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon, and the ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon isn't unique in being protected by presidential declaration. Grand Canyon National Park itself started out that way. In recent weeks, reports have circulated that the administration is planning to shrink the boundaries of a number of monuments, including the ancestral footprints of the Grand Canyon National Monument. Do you plan to support the rollback of monument protections for the Grand Canyon?
Senator, thank you for the question, and thank you for the time yesterday. I enjoyed speaking with you about this and a number of your other areas of focus. The Grand Canyon is an amazing place. My parents here and my son have spent a lot of time there. And while I'm not at the department, I'm not aware of any of those discussions, but the importance and the majesty of the Grand Canyon is not lost on me.
Thank you, and I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Gallego. I want to thank the witnesses and everyone for their participation today. It's been a little chaotic with multiple markups and multiple committees happening, but a lot of cooperation from members of the committee has helped. Questions for the record for this hearing are due by 6 p.m. this evening. The record of the hearing will remain open for statements until 6 p.m. on Thursday, May 8th. Again, I thank members of the committee. On behalf of the committee, I'm pleased to extend a congratulations to those nominees, to all these nominees, and look forward to working closely with each one. I also look forward to working with all of the senators on the committee as we continue to consider each of the president's remaining nominees within the jurisdiction of this committee in such a productive manner. I hope every senator of the committee will continue to work with me to persuade leadership on both sides of the aisle to bring up these nominations for a vote on the floor as soon as possible. And again, thank all senators for their cooperation this morning. The hearing's adjourned.